Yeah, we've got some wonderful local creators and experts in the field today. I'm gonna go ahead and have you guys introduce yourselves. Chris, can we start with you? Introduce yourself, and then we'll go around the table.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm a research associate at Louisiana State University for the Department of Electrical Engineering, where I run our semiconductor lab, as well as a printed circuit board lab and a prototyping lab there. Um, so glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Meagan Moore. I'm a student at LSU in biomedical engineering, and I am the special projects manager at St. Joseph's Academy, Baton Rouge.
I'm Wayne Newhauser. I'm a professor at LSU, and I run the medical physics and health physics education program in partnership with Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center.
Hi, I'm Ashley Michel. I'm a librarian here at the main library at Goodwood, and I am also a maker. I was making cloth masks at home during the lockdown, and I also led my son's Cub Scout unit in a service project for making masks, and we had quite a lot of success with that.
Awesome. And I am Adam St. Pierre. I am the moderator of this panel. Work for the East Baton Rouge Parish Library, and we also got a taste of making PPE for our staff and for first responders. So first of all, I just want to thank everyone that's here today for taking the time to come out and be with us with the first annual virtual Baton Rouge Mini Maker Fair. Thank you, guys. So this first session is called DIY PPE, Making Us Safe Together, but it really should be called Do It Together instead of Do It Yourself, because we didn't just do this by ourselves at home. We all had a network of people that were helping us to put this together and to help first responders, to help our various organizations, and just in general help. So there's usually a moment there where that need is recognized for help. And I want to go around and ask you guys, what was that moment or that series of moments that made you want to get involved with the PPE building project throughout the Baton Rouge area? Chris, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to you first.
Well, I'd say probably within a few hours of the lockdown, I started communicating with my friends who happen to be engineers, and we started designing open source PPE masks right off the bat. But the very next day, I got a call from the professor in charge of LSU Engineering's COVID response, Dr. Nikotopoulos, and he called me back to campus to start making PPE and developing a ventilator. And so within the first 24 hours of the lockdown, I guess as soon as I got the call, I was back on campus making face masks, making face shields, designing face masks. And while we were loading up our fabrication equipment, me and another engineer were developing the hardware and software for the ventilator back when we thought there was going to be a huge shortage of ventilators.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So you guys were starting with and how many, do you know about how many ventilators you guys put out or how many parts, or how did that go?
So we actually didn't send any ventilators out. This one is one of two. We did, however, there was a couple communities that were developing ventilators. One was headed by a forum run by MIT, and the other one was Rice. There was a few others, but those were the ones we were paying the most attention to. Everybody was looking for software. And the hard part about the hardware is immediately within a few weeks of the crisis, there was a mass shortages of things like motors, motors, switches, sensors, everything that we have in there. We had to piecemeal shop from this store, Mouser, DigiKey, Granger. So there was a few different designs. This one was the mechanical design was pioneered by Rice University, but nobody had software out there. So everybody was bug fixing, and there was no open source software. So once we made a few improvements on our hardware and made that open source from our GitHub. We also developed software for it as well, which was quite a few steps above what Rice ended up offering. We have, for one, we have assist control. So this device it has a pressure sensor in there. So when you try to take a breath, it assists your breath instead of
That's
forcing
amazing.
air down your throat. So once we did that, we put that software out there, and then we started talking to doctors in New Orleans and professors here on campus about trying to get emergency approval from the FDA. And when we passed that into their hands, and nothing actually ended up coming from that. But once we made all of our stuff open source on GitHub, that's when we started getting messages. Our main programmer started communicating with people from Sudan, Brazil, Argentina,
That's amazing.
to name a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we started helping them with their systems, because in Brazil, they're not going to have access to the same online stores that we have access to here.
So it was a real
in quick order.
international effort. That's really great, Chris. Let me toss it over and see what was that moment for you guys, Meagan?
For me, I started as soon as it kind of hit the US and it started trickling through, and we already saw how pervasive everything was with COVID-19 around the world. It was obvious that it was going to keep propagating, and that exponential growth was it's something that we talk about in science all the time, and we were watching it in real time pretty much every day. The news was altering constantly. And I had started looking at designs, working on things. I work in a maker space every day. I get up and go in and I'm making something. And in this case, it was just a matter of talking with my mom, because she's a professional seamstress among many other hats that she wears. And she was starting to sew things, asking me for what hospital designs were the best. And then I was working on 3D modeling. And then, like, I guess the next day, turned around and Wayne was like, "Hey, we got a call from New Orleans. Stuff has gone wrong. Do you want to come over to my garage?" Because I work in Wayne's lab, to give that connection to the audience. But I was like, absolutely. And so I went over there. We had two other students, Kathleen Disatel and Maxwell Cole, that were part of the project over there. And we started working on things. And we were like, anything goes. We're talking bare minimum. We don't know what's going to be available on the market right now. We're talking taking apart like garbage bags. We're taking cardboard and using binder clips and basic page protectors and trying to put them together, and navigating templates that we can send out and put on the internet for free as an open source system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the big thing to take away is the more open source you can be whenever a crisis impacts a lot of people, the more it's going to help. And it's not like, no one that I spoke with as we were going through this was about like just making money or like trying to navigate it from that angle. It was, there's a need. How can I fit the need? How can I use my engineering experience? How can I use my maker experience and go forward and make things happen? And like working closely with Wayne on all these different projects previously, we knew how to talk with each other and like what we were looking to navigate. And he has all these different abilities to navigate and network and get the people that need to be part of the projects. And so I'll let him pass things on.
Yeah, definitely.
That was a very nice description, Meagan. Like Meagan said, there was we got a call from a physician in an acute care ward in a hospital in the New Orleans area, and the situation there was quite dire. And at that time, he thought his greatest need was some ventilator parts. And he asked if he somehow was aware that we had been 3D printing medical devices, and he asked if we could do that.
Right.
So, sure. So we understood it as best we could by phone, and then within a day or two, he was on my back porch, and we were discussing things. And it turns out that face shields were the new highest priority. So we kind of switched to that, and but basically it was an ask. You hear about this sometimes, the power of the ask. And it was for me, it was the moment that ask came in, because when it did, I think everyone probably thinks to themselves, well, am I the right person to do this?
Can I actually do this?
Yeah.
Am I the one to join into this? And I think the answer is usually yes. Everything you guys are describing is very human moment. of us all coming together to see that need
Mhm.
of our community to, keep each other safe.
And so when I asked myself, gee, I'm not a gown maker, I'm not a PPE maker, I don't know I barely knew what PPE
Relatable.
what was for a
Yeah.
couple of weeks, but then I thought, well, wait a minute, you've spent most of your career working in proton radiation therapy. These machines are the most expensive, biggest, most complex medical device available in the United States.
Mhm.
I thought, how hard can it be to make a gown or a face shield in comparison to that? And so that, and having had a history of working closely with physicians, this this combination of ability to relate and communicate
Mhm.
quickly and efficiently, and having the technical background and connections. I mean, isn't it great being in a marvelous community with multiple universities and
Oh
even
yeah.
high schools like St. Joseph's that has all kinds of maker workshops and capabilities. So, that moment, it all kind of happened within a day, I would say. This whole
Oh, for
process
sure.
of the
For
ask,
sure.
the contemplation, the decision. Let's move forward.
What
Well,
about you, Ashley?
as Dr. Newhauser said, it was pretty much the same for me. I'm not a scientist, and I'm a librarian, but I went to St. Joseph's Academy and I took home ec, and all my friends took choir. I took home ec, and I got a little ribbed for it, I think. But here I
But it
am
came in handy
many
now.
years
see?
later, and I'm the one that knows how to use the sewing machine. And when we locked down the community and the library closed, it was about the same time as my son's school, also going completely virtual. So the next thing, within 48 hours, I found myself home with my child. My husband works at a hospital, as does my sister, and
Mhm.
I also have 4 nurses in my family,
Oh wow.
not including the ones that are retired. So, I mean, the first thing you want to do is, what can I do to
Mhm.
protect myself, protect my family? One of my cousin's wives is a nurse at Angola,
Mhm.
and she works the COVID ward amongst the prisoners. Of course, my immediate concern was for them. My husband going to a hospital every day. So before I left the library, I did some quick research on different mask designs. How easy are they to make?
Mhm.
Which ones are the most effective? Some of the first ones I made are actually these. I made these out of old pajama pants. And my husband's blood donation shirts that he never wears. This is the
That's a
string that
fantastic
came on
use of
the.
that
Yeah.
upcycling
I
there.
started cleaning
Upcycling
out my
great.
drawers, my closets. This was one of the first ones I made. And I made a bunch of them to send with my husband. This one I made for my son. And you notice the first thing I put on were straps, because I had a really hard time finding elastic.
Mhm.
It was an amazing shortage of material. So this
Yeah.
is just ripped up shirts. Um, and then, as I got fancier, I started getting a hold of, that Baby Yoda,
Cute.
Baby Yoda one.
Adorable.
And I started perfecting the tie design. So all of this is just trial and error for, I think I was home locked down for about 2.5 months before the library reopened. And during that time, when I was helping my son with his virtual school, I was at the kitchen table just churning out masks. I think I made something in the neighborhood of about 20 for my cousin's wife who works in Angola. Several more from the other nurses in my family, from my husband, my sister. And, and then from there, it just kind of progressed, so the moment for me was the moment that we locked down. And then, all of a sudden I have this skill that allows me to make these things that will protect the people I care about.
Mhm.
And everybody needs at least 5. So if you've got 20 people asking you for masks, well, that's 100 masks right there.
Yes, it is.
So, yeah, it didn't occur to me to charge for them. I just giving them away.
Yep.
Because you want to do something that the anxiety level from a pandemic is the feeling of helplessness.
Right, and you've
And
got to do something to help all of
yeah,
your fellow humans that are out there. Not just the folks within your family, but the folks that are in the entirety of our community. I'm just in awe of all of you guys and all the things that you've contributed to this community, and internationally as well. So that leads me to, you guys have all touched on it just a little bit, but what was describe a little bit more about how difficult it was to get supplies and where you got them. I think I think I'm going to go ahead and go back to Chris on this one because you touched quite a bit on all of the different online sources that you were going towards. So what was the difficult, or how could you get past the difficulty of getting supplies, or just kind of speak to the scarcity that happened in the very beginning or throughout, really?
Well, I had to get permission from for our budget to just jump on purchases, because I would go to one site or one seller on Amazon maybe that had the motors I wanted, and I emailed Dr. Nick asking him if I have authorization to use my LSU card. And by the time I got authorization, it would be gone. So then I just got pre-authorization to make all the purchases I need to make, and then I just started grabbing things as soon as I saw them. Not more than we needed for developments, but because we don't want to take them from other people's development either. It's hard to remember all the weird motor companies we got stuff. I think Servo City was one.
Mhm.
We got a lot of weird odds and ends from Amazon once DigiKey and Mouser started running out. And then I think we got some stuff from Granger. Oh, and eBay. I was getting some medical supplies from a seller in New Orleans, actually, that was selling these bags on eBay. So that's where we got those. So we kind of just had to get creative. Usually I have a short list for everything I have in my lab or any of my labs on campus. But this time we just kind of had to use that Google search engine to see what we could get.
That magical Googling power. That's very, very helpful at any
Yes,
time.
it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So both Dr. Wayne and Meagan, you guys both touched on it a little bit, how you got to get creative for making different things. I'm going to go to Dr. Wayne first on this. So maybe we can touch on some of the things with St. Joseph's Academy with Meagan. So what was it like trying to get supplies during this time for you?
It was really it was tough.
It's good that we can laugh about it now.
Yeah, like Chris said, you find something, you order it, and then minutes later you find, well, it's out of stock, it's on back order, and so we had to do a lot of scrounging. And I would say broadly, the community really pulled together on this. So we got stuff from the community. We have a bunch of industry partners. The university, Tony Lombardo at university, who is the key to university stores, gave it to us essentially.
Oh, very nice.
So we could raid the university stores, which has a lot of useful stuff in it. And the various engineering departments, the physics department, units, all across campus were contributing equipment and materials as the need became apparent. So wherever it was in supply, we were able to get it, no problem. So it was just the things being run out. And then another just amazing experience for me in this was at one point we needed a lot of plastic sheeting to make disposable gowns, and it had become very hard to get, and we found 8 pallets of it in Ohio, in a warehouse in Ohio. But it was, I don't know how much it was going to cost, $40,000 or something. And so I said, okay, we need a director of development. So Connie Fabre from the community here became our director of development, and she listened to me and says, okay, call these people. She gave me a list of people. So I made 4 phone calls, and that netted $120,000.
Wow.
Oh,
In hours. So the community was totally mobilized, totally behind this. And as Chris said, it was just really a matter of finding the things, not so much struggling to pay for them or so on.
Didn't you guys also partner with Lamar Dixon? I seem to remember
With the
some
billboards,
some
the billboard
Facebook
material,
photos of Meagan and
Burger Mat and random LSU billboards that we were dissecting to try and navigate the design.
yeah, I kind of remember that.
Lamar was a big one of our biggest industry partners in this. They donated a lot of ideas, expertise, and especially a lot of material. So they donated some. Initially, we had asked for just some used billboards to kind of learn the ropes and play around with, and then they saw what we were doing and liked it and said, well, don't take that stuff into the hospital.
Yeah.
Here's some,
Here's some more stuff.
Here's some better stuff.
Yeah.
here's an unlimited supply of new materials. So we like that.
Right, of
They're
course.
fantastic. Ross Riley
Yeah.
at Lamar was just terrific in helping us. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys had a gigantic setup because you eventually were in the PMAC
Yes.
later.
Well, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step.
That's
and
very true.
with campus closed, we just couldn't do business in the university. So it started in my garage,
Mm-hmm.
and within a few weeks, we had figured out how to make ventilator parts, face shields, and we were well on our way with gowns. And then the university, thankfully, came and said, "Hey, we heard about what you're doing. They'd seen it on the news." And said, well, do you think this is scalable? And do you think we could move this to campus? And I was like, that'd be great if we could. And so
Mhm.
it was this very harmonious, it was almost like a startup,
Right.
You start in a garage and then you hope that somebody will buy you out. And
I do have to
Yeah.
ask who's the Wozniak and who's
There
Bill-
is no ill-fated angst between the group, unlike some of the other people that I've seen start stuff out of garages.
it was all harmonious. Wouldn't you agree that in the whole project, there was never a raised voice, there was never an argument, and this was, in spite of the circumstance being intense time pressure,
Mhm.
people working extremely long hours.
14 to 16-hour days sometimes.
That was very typical. And there was also how do I say this? We didn't know what we were doing, so we had to fail a lot. That was just
Yep.
from the
Well,
outset.
that's the
Glorious failures.
Yeah, glorious failures. That's making.
So, despite that, so there's sort of a marketplace of ideas amongst all of the volunteers. And, only a few of those made it to the end, but the shedding of the ideas that were maybe good, but not the best,
Mhm.
there was no attachment to that. And
Mm-mm.
everybody was like, yeah, that works better. Let's do it that way. Never mind what I've been working on for
Yep.
3 days. It's clearly better. So it was just amazing to see it, how altruistic and harmonious the whole group and the community was during this time.
That's amazing.
It was really great to actually sit down even in between, whenever we would get a break, and get to know the people you've been around for, extremely long periods of time that you still haven't had long duration conversations with. And I feel like our lab got closer because of doing all this work together, in fact.
That's an amazing bonding experience, and just I'm just shocked with all the altruism and shedding of ego to make this happen, because you guys went from a shed all the way to LSU and in the PMAC, and I remember the governor being in there, and didn't you guys make over 1,000?
20,000?
20,000?
It's over 20,000 gowns at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, that's quite a lot.
Yeah,
Quite
in
a
a
lot.
month, it was 20,000 gowns.
And also, I think there was, in excess of 7,000 face shields.
Mhm.
And I don't know that we ever did a tally, but there was a shortage also of ventilator filters.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially an air pump, and you put a filter on the intake and the outlet side. And these were in very short supply nationally. They were only fabricated, manufactured overseas on back order, etc. So we made a lot of those for hospital in the Baton Rouge area.
Mm-hmm. So Meagan, let me ask you. We've been talking a lot about all the different amazing efforts that LSU did. Can you speak to some of the efforts for St. Joseph's Academy, because you had to go from no school at all to being in charge of the STEM lab over there and making that campus safe.
Yeah, and so I had a great team that I worked with, and Claire Lucart, though she isn't working with us anymore, we started just hammering out things, because they were like, "Hey, we're going back to school in the fall," and we were all bug-eyed, "Oh, okay, what does that mean? How
Right.
do we navigate this? How do we make it safe? What are you expecting from us? Here are some ideas we just came up with on the fly. Now that you've said this out loud to us," and we started playing together with all these different templates and designs. We had access to a fairly large access laser cutter, and so both of us started playing in Inkscape and Illustrator, trying to play out templates and figure out what the height and width needed to be. acrylic started going in short supply. I'm sure
Oh,
everybody
yes.
has
Everyone was
had
looking
a
for
terrible
acrylic.
time. And I mean, like, be it opaque or clear, and just, shower curtains were going out of stock that were clear. There were all kinds of different things with PVC pipe and shower curtains and garbage bags and, visqueen, and people were just trying to put things together. And we were on the front end because we kind of got a little bit of a warning, but it was still very fast paced because we were trying to navigate the school system, and started knocking out templates. And we were like, hey, does this work? It's standing, it's a shield, it hangs off the desk this much, there's this much between students.
Oh my God.
And
'Cause you guys started in July?
it was like
August?
August,
Yeah.
and school starts back. And yeah, it was like July, August. It was in that time frame. And we had kind of been playing with a couple of things, but I was coming off of the other project with everything else, in addition to navigating some of, like, okay, the semester in existence, what is it? And went straight went straight into doing the shield development before the semester started for the students, in addition to my semester starting.
Right.
And that was a roller coaster. We had, like I said, acrylic shortages. Even when I was doing the fabric mask at the beginning, back in like February and March, I had, my mom was like, "We're out of elastic," and I was like, "Oh, that's not great. Let's go. Like, where can we go? Because we know Joann's is going to be sold out."
Mm-hmm.
And we did find some later, but she ended up taking apart Mardi Gras masks and using the elastic from those
Oh,
to make
wow.
masks at one point. So, I mean, like, all around, everybody was just like, well, I've got this idea. This is stretchy. This does this thing. This has this property. And you just kind of navigate what you can with the materials.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ashley, coming
So-
back to you,
I
what
had
was it
a
like
similar-
getting elastic or any of the materials at all during while we were shut down with the library?
It was hard. Like I said, I started with just what I had in my house.
Mhm.
I couldn't get elastic because everybody who was started making masks the day before me got to Hobby Lobby before I did. I ended up ordering some online, Amazon, even Wish. People actually brought me stuff. A lot of the stuff that I had was donated. I had people who were going to Hobby Lobby bring me like these little beads that are on these straps. They slide. They make adjustable. They're meant to be crafting beads, but they make
Mhm.
really good adjusters. And so my cousin's wife brought me that. I think the materials, as far as the materials, when I finally started being able to get a hold of things like elastic and um, the nose bridge things, those are all
Oh, I've got one of those in my mask. They are a lifesaver.
they are. And what I used were all the twist ties that we save off of the loaf of bread that we
Mhm. That's what
hoard, that
mine's made out
everybody
of.
in the South hoards. Those twist ties, now we don't have anymore, but I must have had like 500 of them in a drawer somewhere. Now we're out. So that's kind of where mine came from. A friend of mine donated, I'm not kidding, the hugest stack of fabric I've ever seen in my life. And I was going through it, and there were tags from TG and Y on it.
Ooh,
So I'm like,
you're gonna have to elaborate what that is
for you
me.
young ones,
Yes.
TG&Y went out of business 30 years ago.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
It's
Thanks
kind
for
of
your
like a Big
context. I
Lots.
appreciate it.
I think it was up in her closet somewhere, and I'm still working my way through that pile. And that's what we used for our project. That's what we used for the no-sew mask for the Cub Scouts. It's what we used. I'm still going through it. So I was lucky to get a lot of donations, and that's what I was lucky for with my materials.
Wow. So let me kick it back to Chris for just a minute here. And just everyone, there's so much advice that went around in the very beginning of this, the pandemic, and so many different designs and standards and everything. Was there a specific one that you were trying to adhere to?
With rapid prototyping, you kind of have the advantage of trying out all of them and seeing which one works best. For the face shields, we kind of finished on the either the Foster or the Prusa designs. The Prusa designs were really good for putting over your Tyvek, so the full bunny suits. But they were kind of uncomfortable just on your bare forehead after a while. So this is the Prusa design. And so, yeah, this hard plastic up against your forehead
I
for
remember that
extended
one.
periods. Yeah, for extended periods of time, it gets kind of annoying. So I don't have any Fosters at home, but the Foster design was just all out of PET and then a rubber strap. Oh, and I forgot to mention when we were talking about materials is after a few weeks of testing these things out, the professors at LSU and maybe Dr. Wayne knows started getting big pallets of materials donated, including the clear PET that we have here. So where was I? Or foster design. Oh yeah. So with rapid prototyping, you have the advantage of testing all these designs, seeing which one works better, and then kind of focusing on that. And then besides that, when it came to the ventilator and different mask designs that we're playing around with, we kind of just were told to, we're kind of given good faith to just do the best we can to find the best solution. And that's what we did.
Okay, that's amazing. That's that is the wonderfulness of rapid prototyping in general, because you can just keep going and keep trying to find what design works the best for you. So I guess I'm gonna toss this one to Meagan, and we'll go back to your St. Joseph's Academy experience. How did you guys come up with the designs for that, or were you looking around in different designs online, or what was the iteration of that process like?
Moment to moment was changing. We were trying to figure out what exactly we needed to navigate to fit the specs based on, people being in a space nearish to each other after being away from one another for so long.
Right.
And just talking with, people about what the specs are that they were using in hospitals, industry, and keeping that in mind. And then Claire and I both were looking at different designs that were out there already and going, well, we can't do that because it needs to hang this far off of a table, and the down forces won't work this way, and we need to put this here, and like the trying to get it to stay up. And then also because students like to somehow walk into objects that they don't necessarily see, like it's like not in their mind.
That seems like a general teenager thing.
Yeah, like it's not even just students, I'll admit it. It's like sometimes just like you get so used to the object being there, it's like your depth perception turns off, and
Right.
you'll walk in like just like bumping objects in general. So we had to figure out like what glue would hold it to the desk best. So it was like E6000, tons of it, cases
wow.
of E6000 to keep it down on the tables, but we can also pull it up later. And trying to navigate that material was a whole like series of glue tests. It was like weird science fair.
About how many do you know off the top of your head about how many things you guys made over there at St. Joseph's?
I know there were.
Don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine. I know there were like at least 8 shield designs that we've worked off of, maybe 10 at this point. Different spaces needed different ones, like the sinks in the painting classrooms for the art classes. They had to be shorter because of shelving units, and they were custom, and so we had to adjust those. And then in certain classrooms, they needed to be taller because students stand sometimes in the science labs, or like at lunch, they needed to be a certain way. And then they don't need them in this space outside because this is how the distancing is being handled. And so we were constantly in communication with different parts of the administration, and a lovely woman named Linda Thompson, just constantly navigating what we needed to do, and talking with our nurse and everybody else that needed to be in the know and constantly changing.
That sounds exhausting but rewarding at the same time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Both at the same time.
Both at the same time, of course. So I want to come back to that in just a minute, but Dr. Newhauser, so how did you guys decide on like standards, or because you guys did so many different, and Meagan, if you want to speak to this too, just so many different designs and so many different objects that you guys made for PPE. Like, where did you start? How did you decide on where you were going?
It's funny. It really is. It started out with a piece of cardboard and a garbage bag, and I was so frustrated sitting there by myself in the garage because I sat on the couch watching the news for a week, and we've got to be able to convert this into something useful. And so it started very humbly, and my sons patiently served as models. So I was putting these, face shields with the covering on their head, and they sat there and tolerated that. But it was just a repetitive cycle of try, fail, refine, repeat, over
just an
and
iterative
over.
Design process, like Chris was talking about.
And this kind of concluded. It was an interesting little experience. We were trying to complete the replacement ventilator filters, and there's a whole science to filtration, and it's a deep science. And providing N95 performance is non-trivial, and particularly since we didn't know how effective N95 standard was for filtering the coronavirus. So we got the top engineers from Exxon and NASA. Both organizations gave us access to their top engineers on this. And we were having, daily phone calls. And at some point I said, guys, look, let me try to put this in perspective. You've all seen Apollo 13, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they're filtering CO2. We're filtering, coronavirus. I don't understand what you're talking about. I can get things at Home Depot like, HEPA filters and electrostatically charged filters and so on. And we can make, the housings and whatnot in our machine shop. But I don't have time to understand the science. We've got about 2 days supply left in the local hospital, and then they'll be all gone, and we'll be running without filters.
Right.
And so this kind of, helped them. They all, of course, knew and loved that movie. Engineers, I think. Well, everybody loves that movie.
Yeah.
Everybody who's around science loves that movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so they got it at that moment, and then they kind of came back with a little bit dumbed down version that I could understand, and we were able to proceed. So it was hard to figure out, to answer your question directly. I mean, the standards were also evolving. So another quick example would be, the requirements for the gowns were very, very high, and then they ran out. And then there were no more requirements. They were happy to get whatever we could give them. And then the national supply chain kind of kicked back in.
Right.
And then our gowns were no longer meeting requirements, and they were preferring to use the things that were manufactured to a higher standard. So it was all changing all the time.
And Ashley, if you could, I know you were doing a cloth mask making at your house, but can you tell us a little bit your design changes over the months? Did you have to have your children model for you as well as patient models?
Yeah. And the thing is, between my husband, my son, and the various people in my family, just like clothes, face masks feel different to different people based on design.
Mm-hmm.
My husband prefers the fitted ones, like this. He prefers the ones with ties so that he finds them more adjustable. My son actually prefers the gator style mask, but also these pleated ones that I make. And these actually have a pocket you can put a coffee filter in that adds a little bit more to the filtration. But the ones that my Cub Scouts did were these no-sew masks because they don't require any sewing.
Mm-hmm.
And the way these work is you twist them like this and loop them around the ears. They're easy to make. You just need scissors and cloth glue. And they're adjustable. So, it depends on, we made these, you can make a lot of quickly. These take more time, but they fit better. These come somewhere in between. So, the design is based on need, how much material you have, and how fast you need to get a large number out. So I played with about 3 different designs.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. I just want to go back around and thank all of you guys for all of your efforts throughout the pandemic, and just going back and all the things that you've done for your communities, all of your altruism. Thank you, Chris, for joining us via Zoom.
No problem.
Thank you for everybody in the studio. This has been a great conversation, and I hope that our services, y'all services, are not needed in the future like this again. But 2020 has been a heck of a ride, so we'll have to see. But I just want to thank you guys, and this has been a fantastic first panel for the first virtual Baton Rouge Meat Acre Fair.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for putting on the fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely.